feel like a professor today with all the books and stuff. How are you? Good, me too. Had a great weekend Friday night. Cynthia and I hosted a Nourishing Our Community event. A couple people who are here today were at that event, wonderful food. And then yesterday was a fabulous workshop again with Karen Ramsey and Jane Power, the Caring for Your Soul Matters of Money Level 2. So I can't remember, I know Twyla was there for that and Cynthia was there for that. Am I missing anybody else who was here yesterday? Great, fabulous workshop. They will come back again. I highly recommend that you take advantage of their work because it's really wonderful. So today our topic is, what is mine to do? And this is for all of you who have been sitting here saying, well, I'm tired of the being, David. I'm tired of just sitting around meditating and contemplating. What can I do? Because we like to do things, right? Especially in the Western culture, American culture, I want to do something. Give me something to do, right? Yes? So we're working with this out of the idea of, from the Global Heart Vision, the idea that we see a world in which we are called to conscious action. Conscious action. Now, a lot of us take action. If you're like me, you've occasionally taken action and then you've gotten conscious later, right? Okay. You know, those packages that have directions in them, that most of us men just kind of, we don't need those stinking directions. And then afterwards we realize that maybe it would have been better or at least faster or easier if we had looked. So, but we want to talk about the idea of conscious action. And it's why we've spent so much time, 5 months worth of doing our work in consciousness to get deep into that point, to get deep into that sense. But there also comes a time where, as Paul says, faith without works is dead. If we don't take then that consciousness and move it out and express it. Ernest Holmes or Ron Religious Science, there's a saying that says treat, doing a spiritual mind treatment, treat and move your feet, right? And so there's a time also that after we've done the work in consciousness, we can't just sit there in that consciousness, we have to move it outwards. And so another thing that Ernest tells us is we tend to be overread and underdone. And so what he invites us to do is be people who take this teaching and practice it, who move it into the world, who move it into our lives, who move it into expression and form in whatever way we can. So oftentimes we get caught in the dichotomy between, do I take action or do I sit in contemplation? And we have this, it's what I call the yin-yang, the Taoist yin-yang symbol of life. And sometimes we can get caught up in one or the other. And so we can get caught up in the yin. It feels so good to just sit on that meditation cushion, and just sit there in contemplation for hours at a time for some of us, right? Sometimes it feels so good to sit on our meditation cushion, also known as our bed, in a prostrate position. This morning was one of those mornings. Yesterday morning was one of those mornings too. And so, but eventually we have to move into the yang energy of doing something. But if we move into the yang energy without the yin, then I'm out doing, and then it's kind of a fire, aim. Was I supposed to get ready too? Instead of ready, aim, fire, we start with the fire first. So to bring both of those into a balance, to start to work with, because the yin energy is where I get my directions, the yang energy is where I apply those directions. And so starting to work with that idea. So action without consciousness is unproductive. It takes us into places that we really sometimes have to back our way out of. As a friend of mine said, I prayed something into my life, now I got to pray it back out of my life. Because I wasn't real conscious as I prayed it into my life, as I moved it into my life. Oftentimes, unconscious action actually makes the problem we're trying to solve worse. Because if we're not in consciousness, if we're not looking and being clear within ourselves, clear vessels, open to spirit. Yesterday and last week in the Caring for Your Soul, we worked with an idea called our money baggage, which is really just our baggage, period. It's just money is a great way it's a thread to unwind our lives, as several people discovered. We looked at what's the baggage that we carry around, and if we're not conscious of it, and if we don't start to shift it, we will just continue to recreate our old patterns, our old belief systems over and over and over again and wonder why the problem doesn't change and what's wrong with the problem, them, those people out there, that situation out there, whatever. So we have to do the work inside to get clear on that. If we don't, we act out of fear, we act out of our anger, we act out of our hurt. And then we bring more of that into the experience we're having. There's a wonderful story about a man who's sitting outside the walls of a city. And travelers, go by, and this one traveler comes by and says, I'm thinking about moving, to a different city. What kind of a city is this? And he said, well, this is, what kind of city did you experience where you were, where you used to live? And he said, oh, there's mean people there, and they steal things. They're just backbiting and gossiping, not kind. And the man says to him, you'll find the same kind of people here. And so the guy keeps on going. But an hour later, another traveler comes and says, what kind of people live here? And he says, wonderful, kind, love, or did you experience at your previous place? Wonderful, kind, loving people. You'll find the same people here. We bring our consciousness, as the old saying goes, wherever we go, there we are. I bring my consciousness with me. So I have to work on that consciousness. Because we bring the old energy, because we bring energy that's not clear, if we bring that, then we perpetuate that energy. So when we arrive at the goal, it looks much like what we were trying to heal. There's the old Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And so if we don't shift the consciousness, we've watched that happen. How many times have we watched that happen in our lives, right? We've watched it happen on a natural scale. We've watched it happen on a small scale. And so we bring the same things, we bring the same energy. On the other hand, if we're only sitting working in consciousness, just meditating consciously, nothing happens into the world. We don't bring anything here into the world. And we're here not just to hear spirit, but to express spirit. To become spirit. To create heaven as earth as heaven. We're here to be that. In the Jewish Kabbalah, there's the idea that this particular sphere that we live in is a broken sphere that we are here to heal. That we are here to make whole. And we have to have, first of all, in order to do that, we have to have the consciousness of wholeness, right? Because what we see is what we're going to create more of. And if all I see is a broken circle, a broken world, I'm going to recreate more of that broken world. And no matter what action I take to try and make it better, I'm still working off the idea that the world is broken. Until I see the world as whole, complete, and perfect, just as it is, even if it's what we could call flaws, but all those are perfect. Some people go out and buy beautiful silk, jackets and suits and things like that, and they have and handmade artwork that have flubs in them, right? And the flubs and the stubs are part of the beauty of it. Years and years ago, I had a friend of mine who went to New York City. We were living in Hartford at the time, to buy me a Christmas present, and she wanted to buy a sake set, a nice sake set. And she was in this very high quality Chinese store in New York City, and she was looking at this piece that had gold inlay on it and stuff like that. And she goes, oh, this isn't completely consistent. Each piece isn't completely consistent. And she said the owner, and she's kind of a very proper, likes to do things the right way and not offend anybody kind of person. And the owner sort of took it out of her hand, and he says, these are the handmade ones. Over here are the machine-made ones. You might want to look at those. And she was kind of very, remorseful, and I still have that beautiful hand-painted gold leaf set. And honor it completely, because it reminds me of her friendship and her, and that. But it also reminds me of that wonderful story of, yes, life comes with little slubs and flubs, and guess what? They're part of it. They're part of the beauty of it. We pay extra for that. You and I paid extra to be in a flawed world. We paid to be here. So, can we see it? Can we express that spirit? Moses, when he was seeing the burning bush, at one point in time turns away from the burning bush. I don't want to look at this. We've all done that, right? The burning bush represents our call. God calling us, right? And all of us have said, sometimes said, no, I'd rather not answer that call right now. And he's like, no, you don't want me. You want my brother Aaron. I stutter. I got this record. I've done stuff, man. You want my brother Aaron. He's the good kid. He turns away from the burning bush, and God calls him and says, I need you to go talk to Pharaoh, to tell him to stop beating up on my people. He's being called to an action, and each of us is being called to an action. in our lives, in this world. And Moses finally answers the call and becomes one of the greatest leaders of the entire Jewish culture. In fact, he's held as the great leader of the Jewish culture because he over and over answers and does. Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is sitting in the middle of the battlefield at the start of it, and he's torn because on one side is his teachers and brethren that he's going to have to fight, and behind him, with him, are his other teachers and other kinfolk who he's going to have to fight with, be with him in that fight. And he's torn because he realizes they're all going to be tearing apart at each other. And these are people who he loves them all, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's just basically sits down in the middle of the battlefield and says, I'm not going to fight. And of course, if you know that story, Krishna comes along, his charioteer comes along, and to make a long story short, kind of kicks him in the butt and says, you're a warrior, you're supposed to do this. This is your call. You have to take the action, because if you don't take the action, the result can't happen. The blessing, the benefit that's going to come out of this can't happen. And so we're called to take action. We're called to do something with our work. Last Sunday we talked about the idea of Pentecost and the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the disciples. And how would it have been if the disciples said, wow, man, that was a great experience. Just felt the Holy Spirit moving in me. And sat back down and said, hey, let's meditate some more. Let's wait for that. Let's get some more of that going here. It's good juju, man. No, they got up and they went out and they spoke. They went out and they preached the word to everybody who was around them. They had to express spirit. And so we're here. We're here on this planet to express spirit. Now, of course, first we have to listen, right? Those of you who are working with Mae McCarthy's Path to Wealth process, you know every morning you start off by listening to your CSO, your Chief Spiritual Officer, as she calls it. What is mine to do? What is mine to do? And so we ask that question and we listen. But we want to do something other than just feeling good and taking no action. In the book Creating a World That Works for All, which is the inspiration book for this year's talks, Sharif Abdullah tells this wonderful story. I know I've read it here before. It's been some months since I have read it. And it's called The Sword and the Path. And he says, the people of a mythical old town, by the way, it's oldie, towny, with the E's on the end of it, old town, find it necessary to cut a path to a new town. Some residents are sharpening their long swords. Each edge is already finely sharpened, but still they hone them. Each day they are at their wheels, grinding away at their blades, refining their swords ever further. After they get their blades to a microscopic sharpness, they sharpen even further. To the suggestion that they actually use their swords to cut a path to the new town, they reply, we're not ready. Our swords are not sharp enough yet. In another place in the old town, another group of people is actually blazing a trail to the new town. They are hacking through the underbrush. It's slow, tedious, dangerous, mainly because their cutting blades are dull, rusted, and in some cases even broken. Many people tear at the underbrush with their bare, bleeding hands. They curse the slow going, the torturous pace. To the suggestion that they take a little time to sharpen their swords, some say, what swords? Others protest, what good would that do? Anyway, this job is too important to take the time to sharpen our blades. So the sword in this story is the heart. It's our hearts. Are we continuously honing our hearts, honing our consciousness, if you will, to be ready but without ever taking the step to actually do something? Or are we out there acting, doing, without taking the time to step back and say, there might be a better way. There might be a better way to do this process of life than to just simply keep on banging my head or tearing through the brush with bleeding hands. So the invitation this week, is we start to balance this yin-yang energy out. The flow of consciousness, when we tune into that, carries with it the movement into action. If we listen long enough, we are just gently and generally and easily moved into action. And we know when the time is right. We feel it. It starts to just simply happen. Many of you have experienced that, right? That you're holding a consciousness and suddenly you know it's my time to do something. It's my time to move into action. It's not a case of one or the other. In the Gospel of John, John says the Word becomes flesh. The Word becomes flesh. We are simply the vehicle through which the Word becomes flesh. We are the vehicle through which this consciousness, this idea, the ideas that we have are made to happen. We don't necessarily even have to come up with the ideas. We listen and we open and we become conduits for this flow of Spirit. We begin by going within. We begin by clearing away any blocking beliefs and emotions, because most of us carry baggage, right? You might have noticed, you guys don't, but you've met people out there who carry baggage, right? Okay? And so many of us carry baggage. And our baggage will just recreate the same baggage. Consciousness is cause, and we're recreating the same thing that's in our consciousness. So if I'm carrying my baggage and I'm creating out of my baggage, I'm recreating the same thing over and over again. Until I shift my consciousness, until I let go of that baggage, that's the sharpening of the heart. But once I do that, once I let go, once I become at least clear enough, now not perfect, right? We were talking yesterday about the idea of perfection. We are all perfect. Perfection isn't really intended to be here in the world. Because perfection is, guess what? Your idea, and your idea, and your idea, and your idea. Each of us has an idea of what perfection is, right? And have you ever noticed that nobody else, including oftentimes ourselves, ever quite meets perfection? Okay? But perfect, as in we are all in the right place doing the right thing at the right time, even if we don't completely understand it, even if we haven't quite figured out how our little slub fits into the fabric of the whole. We are here, and if we're being honest, and if we're being true, and if we're being the best self we can be, if we're listening in consciousness to our guidance, we are being the right person in the right place at the right time. We're participating in that symphony. We talked last week about the music of the spheres. And all we'll be doing is tooting our horn in what sounds like an off-key, meh, meh, meh. But if it's in the symphony, and that's exactly where that piece needs to be, guess what? It's perfect, right? Right? So are we willing to let our music come out? So after we clear away our blocking beliefs, we listen for clear guidance. We get directions. Guys, I know it's tough. Asking for directions. It's tough for me too. I am just ask my wife. She knows that I'm supposed to know it all and know where I am at all times. And ask my wife once in a while I'm wrong. Just once in a while. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. If I'm not paying attention to my inner spirit. So we get directions. We take that time to get directions. And then we take steps. We start to move into this process. We start to move based on that direction. We let the energy of that flow of spirit move us. And when you've tasted that process, when you've felt that process, you know it. And it's very easy to tap into. We may not be able to see the whole path when we take off. And that's another thing that some people, I want to see all the way where I'm going. If you took off from here for a drive to New York City, could you see all the way? Could you anticipate everything that's going to happen along the way? No. How much do you need to know? You need to know where your car is parked right now, how to open the car, get in, turn it on, have enough gas, and start driving in the right direction. Having a map is a good thing, right? Okay? But you can't anticipate what the whole journey is going to bring. And so if we're waiting until we have all our ducks in a row, everything lined up to where I can see clear to the end of it, many of us will be waiting and waiting and waiting until I post that little stone over our final waiting place that says, he or she is still waiting. They were the best waiter around. So we don't need to wait until we can see the path. We need to, when we get the instructions, when we start to know just what is the next step. What is the next step? To take that step, to follow that, and to trust that that step will lead, and we'll get more directions as we go. More to come. We trust, we have faith that as our steps are spirit guided, they take us in the direction of our greatest good, even if it doesn't look like what we expect. And sometimes even getting to our greatest good doesn't look like what we expect. We were talking with Karen Ramsey and Jane Power last night, and they had this idea of they do surprise dates with each other. You know, and they just say, you know, I want to have a date with you. You need to be present at this time and be dressed this way. So they have kind of a clue of how to dress appropriately. And they were down in I believe it was Carmel this weekend, or this past week, and Karen wanted to take Jane to this fabulous French restaurant that she knew of as a surprise date. Unfortunately, they had gone to have a late lunch at this fabulous restaurant, and by the time dinner was supposed to come around, they were still both stuffed from lunch. And so she was like, at first disappointed, and then realized, wait, I did the surprise date. We've already done the surprise date. It was this wonderful, fabulous food. It was just a couple of hours earlier than we thought it was going to happen at a slightly different place. And they were both happy. It worked out for both of them. Okay? And so sometimes our surprise dates, sometimes our ideas of what we think or how we think it should be are different, but the result, if we check in, the satisfaction is the same. And so are we willing to let our steps take us to somewhere that may not be exactly how we envisioned it, but that catches the real essence of what it is that we want to do? Are we willing to do that? So I want to do a guided meditation for a few moments. I'm going to invite Damien in a moment to put on some quiet music and start to play with this idea of what is mine to do. So I invite you to just gently close your eyes, if you feel comfortable doing so, to let yourself relax into the chair. If you have a busy to-do list for this afternoon, put it aside. The ushers will keep it at the back door. You can pick it up on your way out. And let yourself, for now, just simply relax in that chair and just take a deep breath in and out. For a moment, with nothing else to do, allow yourself to be a being that is sitting in a chair breathing. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Whatever happened before this moment, whatever might happen that you think is going to happen after this moment, let it all go and be in this moment, anchored by the attention to your breath. Just notice your breath. It's perfect exactly as it is. Allow yourself to be breathed by the universe. Allow yourself to notice that you have no idea how to move the oxygen into your bloodstream, and yet it's happening. That you're willing to trust the process of life because it's happening. And taking a nice deep breath again and relaxing a little more deeply. Begin to imagine yourself now going to a place that you find is a beautiful place of sacredness, a sacred space for yourself, where you feel just at home, relaxed, deeply at peace, immersed in love. Allow yourself to be here for a moment in this space. Just relaxing deeply into it. Taking in another breath. Imagining that this space is connected to the wisdom of the infinite universe, infinite intelligence, and that it is here for you, intimately connected with you, intimately conversing with you. And so breathing in once again, you ask this infinite intelligence, what is mine to do? At this time, what is mine to do? What is that energy of spirit that wants to come through me now? That wants to express? Letting go of being concerned about the how. The how is spirit's, not yours. What is it that is mine to do now? As I become clearer on that, I also ask the next question, and what is mine to let go of, to release, so that I can be effective in being the best at doing this? So this expression of spirit can come through me as clearly as possible, what is mine to release and let go of. What is that baggage that may have been in the way in the past that I'm willing to let go of? And as you become aware of that, what is mine to do and what is mine to let go of, I invite you to move into gratitude to that infinite presence. Whether the answer has been clear, whether the answer is still in the process of coming, you've asked the question, and the answer will come. The universe always says yes. And then out of that gratitude, I invite you to move into a state of willingness. I am willing. I am willing to express that which is mine to express, to release that which is mine to release. To allow this infinite presence to move through me more powerfully, more fully than ever before. I am willing. I say yes. I surrender into something that is higher and greater than I am, that is my excellence, that is my best. That is the all good, that is the all love of this universe. I let go of my smallness that has held me in place, and I surrender into my greatness. And very gently, begin to allow yourself to be aware of preparing to leave your sacred space, knowing that you can return whenever you want to. Allow yourself now to begin to be aware of this room, the chair you're sitting in, and your presence here, your body being here. Perhaps wiggle your fingers and toes, roll your shoulders, maybe stretch a little bit to get grounded fully back in your body, and very gently, when you're ready, open your eyes and be fully present here again. So our spiritual practice this week, I'm going to invite, is that you continue to sit with that question, what is mine to do? It may be a wonderful way to start your morning, to ask, what is mine to do today, Spirit? What is mine to do? Take that time to ask that question, take the time to listen for the answer. I find sometimes the answer shows up directly when I'm asking, other times it shows up when I'm in the shower or driving or just doing something else. My mind is distracted and all of a sudden it pops in. Just simply being open to the answer. So that's part one, continue to ask the question. And then part two is to take a step every day in the direction in which you're guided. To actually move it into a step. One of the things that Karen and Jane asked us yesterday in the workshop and last week also was taking whatever we gained from it and applying it, finding out, writing out what's a way to actually apply it to do it. So I invite you then to, as you get this guidance, to commit to taking a step each day to moving it into your life. So those are our two spiritual practices this week. Listen and apply. Are you willing to play with that? Take it in, move it out. I want to close with a reading from our Science of Mind textbook from Ernest Holmes. This also comes from a passage in the gospel, the letter to James. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. And Ernest says, this should teach us not to make idle talk about our understanding. What we know, we can do. What we cannot do, we only suppose. We only think we know. Unused knowledge is suppositional and unreal. It is an assumption, and as such, never produced anything. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, but those who do the will of the truth enter in. So the invitation is to be doers. Be doers of this word. To listen to the word, to hear the word, to know the word first, and then to apply it and be doers of it. So let us move into prayer. So knowing that there is this infinite presence, this infinite love, this infinite intelligence, constantly singing, constantly expressing, constantly being itself, broadcasting itself, as we talked about last week, that there is this one infinite presence, always broadcasting, always, that we can tune into it at any time and hear it clearly. We open to that infinite presence. We recognize our oneness with the intelligence and the knowing of the universe. That this is the truth of us always. We are always one of, more than just connected, one of this infinite presence. We are ourselves part of the broadcast, part of the voice of Spirit. And we are the place where that voice gets expressed into human form, into skin world, into this wonderful physical form in which we inhabit. And so I speak my word that each of us begins to be more open to hearing that word, to hearing that broadcast of love, of intelligence, of wisdom, of great good, of joy, of power, of grace, of God, of Spirit, of the Infinite One. We become more attuned to it, and then we move it into form and experience and expression. We move it into action. We allow that process of the divine to move through us. We do that which is ours to do, and we stay out of that which is not ours to do. And we discern the difference between the two. And so I'm grateful as we say yes to Spirit. I'm grateful for the good that moves into our own individual lives, that moves into our own world and the greater world around, for we ripple out throughout this world. What we do ripples out. We are totally interconnected with all of life. And so out of that gratitude, I release this word into a law, that process that knows how to manifest it. We are the willing place, and we say yes to it, and the law takes over and knows how to manifest it, and we just simply follow that guidance, follow that wisdom. And so we release it into that law that brings it into form, brings it into expression, brings it into experience in our lives here and now. We say yes, and it says yes right back. And together we affirm that and know that by saying, and so it is.